Tonight, I Hear Voices Theatre Company, in association with Spanner House of Horror and Dr. Clark's vacuum-facilitated leg reupholstering services, presents a tale of sphincter-dilating awfulness. Yes, from the writers of I Was a Teenage Loss Adjuster, Rosemary's Hamster, and Dick Emery, Prince of Darkness, and the producers of such audiobook classics as Brian Blessed Shouts the Kama Sutra, Charles Hawtrey's The Art of War, and William Shatner Sings Mein Kampf. You are cordially invited to shudder with middle-class British embarrassment at A Ghost Story for Christmas, but not the one that sold out last week. And now, a word from our sponsors.
Bicycles.
Thank you.
I'm still not finished yet.
My apologies.
Yes, bicycles. When you embark upon a cycling holiday, are you worried you may leave something behind? Are you concerned you'll miss the comforts of home? Do you possess a morbid fear of not completely blocking the highway for all other motorists, pedestrians and forms of wildlife? Then you need the all-new Himmler-Crippen-Hague patented 6-speed multi-chamber domiciliary velocipede. Yes, the all-new Himmler-Crippen-Hague patented 6-speed multi-chamber domiciliary velocipede allows you to comprehensively congest even the widest of arterial routes with all the comforts of an Englishman's castle. Comprising 3 bed chambers, 2 receptions, library, inside lavatory, smoking room and scullery. Chain-driven and all balanced on 2, yes, count them, 2 whole spoke-supported wheels, complete with solid rubber tires as standard and bell. Now comes in 3-story townhouse layout for the city gentleman. And remember, avoid imitations. Only the genuine all-new Himmler-Crippen-Hague patented 6-speed multi-chamber domiciliary velocipede makes this noise.
Now read on.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Card, Valentine Card, the larynx of radio. Tonight, it is my dubious pleasure to announce in glorious, trouser-soaking television, Canon Filthy's Scrapbook. Christmas is a time of recollection, a time of ritual, a time of gatherings, when family and friends draw close together, embrace, light a candle, and do anything else which allows them to avoid turning the heating on this winter. It is also a time for ghost stories. Perhaps the greatest master of the art of the British ghost story was Montague Roads Jim, medievalist, antiquary, provost of Screaming King's College, Oxbridge, and winner of the college's award for Best Amateur Queen Victoria Impersonator 6 years running. For almost 20 years, Montague Roads Jim also presided over gatherings of the Chitwag Society, where the wittiest, prettiest, and often blondest of undergraduates meet in the provost's rooms in the dying hours of Christmas Eve for fine sherry, erudite witticism, and rampant homosexual orgies. But this year, a change is about to occur. Not to the orgy, obviously, that's still very much on the cards. No, before that, shall we listen in?
And so I said to the Master of Trinity, simply because they encouraged it in Corinth, it does not follow it is permissible on top of the piano in the snug of the Red Lion.
Witty! How witty!
Yes, thank you, my dear boys. Now then, the hour approaches for our regular Christmas Eve entertainment, and I was thinking that this year I would attempt something a little different.
Different?
Indeed.
But we love it when you dress up as Queen Victoria.
Well,
And sing dirty versions of the 9 lessons?
Yes, but perhaps later. But first, I would like, if you will indulge me, to relate to you A ghost story.
A ghost story? What a ripping idea! Oh, yes, Monty, a ghost story. Then dressing up as Queen Victoria.
Well, all right, that is the evening agreed upon. We shall begin the story. St. Bertram de Livre is a decayed town on the spur of the Pyrenees, not far from Toulouse. It was the site of a bishopric until the Revolution, and has a cathedral, which is visited by a certain number of tourists. 5, to be precise. In the spring of 1883, an Englishman arrived at this old-world place. I cannot hardly dignify it with the name of city, for there are not 1,000 inhabitants. One really can't abide these jumped-up little provincial towns vulgarly declaring themselves cities at the merest fall of a chapeau. Our protagonist, let us call him Dennisford. On second thoughts, let us call him Flinty Perpetua Flipgate Spatchcock III.
That's a dashed silly name, Monty.
Oh, very well. This Dennisford was a Cambridge man, and sometimes an Oxford woman, but that's another story. And he was on a cycling expedition with his best friend and holiday companion, a talented amateur artist named McBride. They had set out that morning from Toulouse, gaily peddling their all-new Himmler-Krippen-Hague 3-story multi-chamber domiciliary town velocipede.
Oh, Bridie, this is the life. The French countryside, the open road, the wind in one's hair, the total sense of freedom and wholly unquestioned English privilege. What a way to spend the 1880s. Bridie, where are you?
I'm in the bathroom.
Bathroom? Good God, man, you've been in there for over an hour.
It's all right. I'm almost finished. I say, what was that, Dennis, old fruit? I think I might have got some water in my ears.
I was saying there's nothing like cycling the open road. Can you feel the wind in your hair?
Well, I am naked, so, yes.
Look, old love, once you've popped on some togs, do you mind taking over the pedals for a spot?
Of course not. No need to worry about togs. All natural will help blow dry the old meat into veg, what? Tell you what, let me just slip in behind you and I'll get hard at it.
Is it really the time for that sort of thing?
The peddling, old fruit, the peddling.
Ah.
Oh, look, downhill bit. Perfect time for a changeover.
Oh, right, excellent, yes.
So, any plans for the day?
Well, before we head off to Ork, I fancied we might spend a pleasant day at St. Bertram's. I've heard the church there is absolutely splendid. I'm sure if we arrive early, I can completely fill a blotter and get several dozen exposures in as well. I might even do some photography if it gets too nippy for all that. I'm sure there'll be some fine opportunities for you also, should you choose to take a sketchbook along. What do you say?
Well, why not? I'm always happy to get the old pencil out and give it a flick.
Oh, capital.
And so it was that Dennisford and McBride arrived at St. Bertram de Livre, and whilst his companion attended to the deficiencies of his wardrobe, shortly after inadvertently encountering the Church Ladies' Flower Arranging Society, Dennisford introduced himself at the Inn of the Pantaloon Rouge, run by brusquely unflappable grande dame Madame Cliché.
Felicitations, my comfortingly sexless woman. I am a fussy English bachelor academic seeking entirely mundane and conventional lodgings for myself, my gentleman travelling companion, and a chain-driven 3-story Georgian townhouse. Can you assist?
How many nights?
Oh, none, I fear. We are just plain professors.
How many evenings do you intend to stay?
Oh, just the one, tonight.
I have 2 luxury chambers vacant above the horse butchers, complete with adjoining pronouns for you and the other ludicrous homosexual. But But the townhouse will have to stay in the yard. Is it a three-wheeler?
2.
Then it will have to lean up against the pigsty and take its chances of wind.
A reasonable arrangement. Thank you, my good woman, if that's what you are. Oh, and after I check in, direct me to the house of the verger or sacristan. I prefer the latter appellation, inaccurate as it may be. I wish to view his church interior.
In that case, you'll be wanting Monsieur Terefi. Go down the main street, take an out left at the office of the prefect for God strangling, then ask again, more politely, in French, to someone who gives Le Sange's pipi.
Oh, capital, my good woman, capital. What ho, Bridie? See you rustled up some rather natty new togs.
Yes, well, the local church ladies were taking a pretty dim view of the whole nudity thing and absolutely insisted they get me into something they deemed a whisker more God-fearing.
So that's why you're dressed as a nun.
Trade so, old fruit.
Well, it might help charm the sacristan. Have you seen him, perchance, have you?
What, Monsieur Terefi? Matter of fact, yes, he's just over yonder, drumming out trade for a tour of ye olde Franco God shop.
Bienvenue, willkommen, benvenuto, witum. Oh, if you're English, hands off, it's ours.
Ah, the traditional and totally understandable European welcome.
I say, you, sir, a little dry, wizened old man with the curious, furtive, or rather hunted and oppressed air.
Oui? What do you want?
Oh, we'd like a tour of your church, old harrico, if that's not too much trouble.
You have money?
I thought he was one of your artists.
Please excuse my ridiculous accent and your ridiculous ignorance. I mean, cash.
Oh, pots of it, my love, we're English.
In that case, allow me to spit in a different direction and unfurl this interactive option menu, available to all foreign tourists with more pounds/shillings than cents. Firstly, for 40 centimes, we have the basic tour, which takes in the stalls, the choir screen of Bishop Jean Le Mesurier, the remnants of a glass and tapestry, the priceless muck in the treasure chamber, and our enormous dilapidated organ. Then, for 60 centimes, we have the basic tour as above, but with the added chance to be stalked relentlessly by an hideous airy demon of hellish vengeance. And finally, for the discerning imbecile, and for 80 centimes, we have the full tour, complete with the chance to discover a collection of priceless lost biblical apocrypha, and subsequently be stalked relentlessly by an hideous airy demon of hellish vengeance.
Oh, well, that all sounds very enticing.
Couldn't we just go for the basic tour with the discovery of the priceless tome of lost biblical apocrypha?
Ooh, yes, is that another 60 centime option?
No.
Ah, well, worth a try, I suppose.
Well, in for a centime, in for a franc, I say. The full 80 centimes with hideous hairy creature feature included, if you'll be so good.
A wise choice, gentlemen and whoopsie. Come in, come in. Attention both. As promised, regardez l'état inestimable. To your inattentive left, we have St. Bertram's magnificent Ivory crozier. It's very nice, I think you would agree. Then to your unappreciative right, there is the famously pointless stuffed kangaroo that hangs inexplicably over the font. You will note it has assiduously not been dusted since 1771, and I would like to stress this slovenly aftercare comes at no extra charge to visitors.
Oh, that's good to know.
I say, Bridie, have you noticed how utterly oppressed the fellow seems to be? He's perpetually half glancing behind him. The muscles of his back and shoulders seem to be hunched in a continual nervous contraction, as if he were expecting every moment to find himself in the clutch of an enemy.
Would you put him down as a man haunted by a fixed delusion, or as one oppressed by a guilty conscience?
Both, perhaps? Unless he's a monomaniac, or has piles. Of course, it's possible he may just be married. You know how formidable a persecutor can be a termagant wife.
Actually, no.
Well, gentlemen, if you wish to look around, I shall step over here and lurk unobtrusively by the choir stalls in an attitude of barely suppressed, unaccountable terror.
It wasn't long before the Englishmen were too deep in their sketching, note-taking, and sporadic acts of casual self-exposure to give more than an occasional flash to the sacristan. Whenever Dennisford did look at him, he found the fellow at no great distance, huddling himself back against the wall, which seemed a perfectly natural position to Dennisford, who was, of course, been an Eden boy. Dennisford became rather fidgety after a time, suspicious that he was keeping the old man from a liaison with some abnormally long bread or willfully soft cheese, and that began to torment his middle-class English soul.
Won't you go home, Monsieur Terrify? I'm quite well able to finish my notes alone. You can lock us in, if you like. I shall want at least 2 hours more here, and it must be cold for you, isn't it? Oh, good God, you don't charge by the hour, do you?
Sacre Jeff! Such a thing cannot be thought of for a moment. Leave you two gentlemen in the church alone together? Who knows what unnatural, unspeakable, pantaloon-decimating horror might manifest? And I'm not even talking about the him being dressed as a nun stuff, neither.
I should jolly well hope not, too.
No, 2 hours, 3 hours a day, 2 days a week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 52 weeks. All will be the same to me. I have breakfasted. I am not at all cold. I have put on an hat, and I have had a wee-wee. No, with many thanks to monsieur, I shall selflessly stay with you to the bitter end, however much it might require you to pay me extra and needlessly play both parts in this scene simultaneously.
Very well, my little man. You have been warned and must take the consequences.
And so, the sacristan kept at Dennisford's heels, but every now and again he would whip around as if he had been stung when one or other of the strange noises that trouble a large empty building fell upon his ear.
I say, Friday, dashed curious these noises are sometimes. Once I could have sworn I heard a thin nasal voice laughing high up in the tower.
What, you mean like that?
I mean exactly like that. I say, Monsieur Terrify.
Good Lord, he's white to the lips.
It is he. That is, it is no one. The door is locked.
Ooh, dashed cryptic. Is it a book or a play, perhaps?
Gentlemen, perhaps we should move swiftly along. For some light relief, allow me to show you both the enormously oppressive and impenetrably dark, nightmare-inducing picture that hangs ominously behind the altar, yet perversely possesses no direct bearing on the rest of the narrative. It is one of a series of one, illustrating the miracle, first-person singular, of Saint Bertrand de Livre. The composition is hideous beyond description, but there is a Latin legend below, which in translation runs thus: How Saint Bertrand delivered a man from the devil who long sought to inappropriately touch with a pilchard.
Ooh!
What a abominable, vile, worthless, corrupting muck. Do you have any more like it, and are they available to purchase?
As I say, that is the one-off, but comes this way.
By now it was nearly 5 o'clock. The short day was drawing in, and the church began to fill with shadows, whilst the curious noises, the muffled footfalls, distant talking voices, and occasional tortured screams, which had been perceptible all day, seemed, no doubt because of the fading light and consequent quickening sense of hearing, to become more frequent and insistent. The sacristan began for the first time to show signs of hurry and impatience. He heaved a sigh of relief when camera, notebook, and sparkly posing pouches were finally packed up and stowed away, and hurriedly beckoned Dennisford and McBride to the western door of the church.
So, Monsieur seemed to interest himself in the old choir books in the sacristy, no?
I should, Coco. For years I have cherished dreams of finding priceless manuscripts rudely discarded in dingy, untrodden corners of your gauche, uncivilized country. No offence, monsieur. Oh, but you probably just have a stupid missile of Plantin's printing. What is the likelihood that a place so near Toulouse, utterly backwards and pisspot insignificant though you may all be, no offence, monsieur, would not have been ransacked long ago by collectors? However, it would be foolish not to find out for certain, I suppose. I say, Bridie, the sacristan has asked us back to his place.
Ooh, he's a dark horse, isn't he?
Not like that, old love. He has a book to show us.
It is well Monsieur does not travel alone. Very well. Monsieur will travel in company with his friend. They will always be near him. It is a good thing to travel thus, in company. Sometimes. By which I mean, of course, to imply ominously it is good to sometimes have company when one travels. Not that it is sometimes good to travel when one has company, which would mean nothing relevant in this particular context. In brief, the sometimes is darkly and melodramatically modifying the noun and not the verb.
Yes, old fruit, I think we get the picture.
Yes, bon. I just wanted to make sure. You know, your English grammar is appallingly non-specific. Ah, here we are, my humble abode.
Ooh, tres posh old legume. Definitely larger than the neighbours, and I like the stone shield carved over the door.
That is the shield of Monsieur Filthy de Molion, Canon of Livre from 1680 to 1701, collateral descendant and collateral damage of Bishop Jean Le Mesurier.
I do love what you failed to do with the place. It's a very, very decayed grandeur with just a frisson of after hours Chelmsford thrown in. Yes.
So, what about this book then?
Oh, very well, gentlemen.
Oh, Papa! Papa, you're home so early. I've barely even started my saxophone lesson.
Thank you, beloved daughter, for that most ecologically recycled gag nicked from last year's Halloween show.
Well, we still had the sound effect, so I thought it seemed a shame to waste it. Oh, Papa!
Nicole!
Papa!
Nicole!
Papa!
Stop it! That's enough, do you hear?
I said you two know each other.
Well, there is the family resemblance.
What, with them both being men, you mean?
No. Well, yes. But I refer rather to, despite the daughter's younger, more innocent face, that it bears also something of the same distressing look. Only here it seems to be the mark not so much of personal fear as safety of acute anxiety on behalf of another.
Crikey, Dennis, old fruit, all that from her boat race. You'd make a dash fine fortune teller, I'd wager.
He was laughing in the church again.
Papa, no, not again.
Sorry, who was doing what, where?
Oh, it is nothing, sir. We French occasionally put words randomly together in sentences. The pen of my aunt is in the garden. Zut alors, there I go again. Complete nonsense, see? Quickly, please, come in.
In but another minute, they were within the sitting room of the house, a small high chamber full of moving shadows cast by a wood fire that crackled ubiquitously like the lazy scene-setting contrivance it assuredly was. Something of the character of an oratory was imparted to the room by a tall crucifix, which reached almost to the ceiling on one side, surrounded by strings of rosaries atop an altar stacked with Bibles, icons of saints, incense burners, communion wafers, bread, wine, holy water, and an assortment of papal dispensations.
Good Lord, Bridie, I wonder if they're Jewish.
Well, they certainly seem to be overcompensating for something.
Manon, gentlemen, allow me to expertly escalate the tension by slowly and solemnly unlocking this wooden chest, which is currently locked. And for some great age and impressive solidity, oui?
Good God, Dennis, it's
The inside of an until very recently locked and closed wooden chest.
No! Look at what is in the bottom of the chest. Under these St. Bertrand de Livre branded gift shop tea towels.
Ooh, too large for a missal.
and not the shape of an antiphona. Might be something good after all.
Behold, this folio, stamped in gold and brie on the sides, bound perhaps in the late 17th century, proudly displays the arms of Canon Filthy de Molion and the legs of a cheap chorus girl. Gentlemen, this unique volume is Canon Filthy's, how you say, scrapbook. It contains a little over 150 leaves of paper, and as you will see, upon almost every one is fastened a leaf from a priceless illuminated manuscript.
Ooh, what's on the other leaves? The ones that don't have manuscript pages attached.
Oh, they are mainly just cartoons of willies. And other things which the canon loved to sketch for his innocent pleasure in his copious amounts of very well-paid spare time. There's a surprisingly large quantity of charcoal drawings of young, semi-nude blonde boys vigorously toweling themselves off after some form of rough sporting exercise, I assume. Plus a few highly realistic pencil studies of ladies in the very short panniers. Those are très bons, I must confess. But mainly it's just willies.
Papa, behave yourself.
Good Lord, such a collection. Let me see. This is beyond my wildest dreams.
I know, I'm sure that one isn't anatomically possible.
Not the willies, Bridie. Look, I swear. 10 leaves from a copy of Genesis, illustrated with pictures. Oh, this cannot be later than AD 700. And this, a complete set of pictures from a psalter of the very finest kind the 13th century could produce. This must belong to some very early unknown patristic treatise. In any case, my mind is made up. This book must return to Cambridge with me, even if I have to draw the whole of my balance from the bank, sell my grandmother, give up opium, rent boys, and rot in this festering, syphilis-ridden Gallic cesshole pit, no offence, monsieur, till the money comes. I must have it! Not that I'm desperate to purchase, you understand.
Well, if monsieur will turn to the end before anyone takes possession of this tome, they must see what it brings at the end.
So Dennisford turned on, meeting new treasures at every rise of a leaf and fall of a willy. But at the end of the book, he came upon a sheet of paper of much more recent date than most he had yet seen. It must be contemporary, he decided, like the sketches of naughty ladies and greatly prolific fallacies, with the unprincipled Canon Filthy himself, who had doubtlessly plundered the chapel library of St. Bertram to form the rest of this priceless scrapbook. But what he then saw upon that page impressed him, as he has often told me, more than he could have conceived any drawing or picture capable of impressing him.
Oh my. Oh my.
Good Lord, it's a bit, crikey, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, so a sepia drawing, probably, judging by the style, from the end of the 17th century. Representing, one would say at first sight, a biblical scene.
Chap on the right looks like a king, Solomon, I'd say.
Throne elevated on 12 steps, lions on either side. Oh, yes, evidently King Solomon. Unusual to see him depicted with 3 legs, though. Also, why that curious little stretched fabric screen set up before the king's throne, resting upon a flimsy wooden structure?
It's funny, it could almost be an easel. I say, Solomon looks a mite put out, though, doesn't he? Bending forward, grasping his sceptre like that.
Well, one hopes it's a sceptre, given the circumstances.
Either way, his face. Look at the horror, the disgust.
Oh, but Bridie, the crouching figure on the left, peering around the corner of the fabric screen. Look at it.
Though the drawing Dennisford and McBride saw is no longer in existence, there is a photograph of it, which I possess, which fully bears out their horror. I entirely despair of conveying by any words the impression which this figure makes upon anyone who looks at it. So I won't bother.
Oh, go on, Monty.
Oh, all right then. I recollect once showing the photograph of the drawing to a lecturer on morphology, a person of, I was going to say, abnormally sane and unimaginative habits of mind. He absolutely refused to be alone for the rest of that evening, and he told me afterwards that for many nights he had not dared to put out his light before going to sleep, had nailed shut his bedroom door, married a Great Dane, and henceforth would only wee in a kettle. However, the main traits of the figure I can at least indicate. At first you saw only a mass of wild, tangled brown hair. Presently, it was seen that this covered a body of fearful, scruffy indolence, but with the muscles standing out like wires. The hands were of a ruddy hue, covered like the body with long, coarse hairs, and was that flicks of paint about the talons? And the eyes, large and glassy, had intensely black pupils and were fixed upon the throned king with a look of beast-like hate. Imagine one of those awful bird-catching spiders of the southern hemisphere translated into human form and endowed with an intelligence just less than that of a PE teacher. And you will have some faint conception of the terror inspired by this appalling effigy. One remark is universally made by those to whom I have shown that picture. For Christ's sake, Monty, take that hideous bloody thing away! But after that, they all agree upon one point. It was drawn from the life. As soon as the first shock of his irresistible fright had subsided, Dennisford stole a look at his hosts, and at last the inevitable question was asked.
Do you mind if I use your lavatory?
No, after that question.
Oh, sorry. Is this book for sale?
Mon Dieu, I thought you would never ask.
If monsieur pleases, it is for sale.
How much are you asking for it?
I will take 250 francs.
Dash it all, old Camembert, that's very cheap. Hang on. Are all the willies included?
My good man, your book is worth far more than 250 francs, I assure you, far more.
No, we will take 250 francs, not more.
In fact, call it 200 francs and not a centime on top.
My dear innocent mademoiselle, I couldn't possibly. I must pay you at least 500.
150? You drive an odd bargain, monsieur.
But I...
All right, you have me. 100. That is our final offer.
No, 6 francs. And a naughty miniature of Queen Victoria?
Papa!
Done. And you most certainly have been. Ooh, this miniature is très naughty indeed.
The money was paid. The receipt signed, a bottle or 4 of wine drunk over the transaction, and then the sacristan seemed to become a new man. He ceased to throw those suspicious glances behind him, laughed, and for the first time in years stood upright, immediately causing his trousers to fall down.
Merde. Gentlemen, it is getting late. Allow me to replace my trousers, and then I shall have the honor of accompanying you to your hotel, no?
Oh no, really, don't trouble yourself, old brioche.
The Pantaloon Rouge isn't 100 yards off. I know the way perfectly, and there is a moon.
Oh, oui, I'm sorry about that. Trousers, you know.
I mean, we shall be fine.
But monsieur will summon us if he finds occasion, and he will keep to the middle of the road. The sides are so dark and slippery, and dangers can wait in the shadows for those who are not prepared.
Certainly, certainly, mademoiselle. Well, we must be off. I must take a look.
Before you go, monsieur would perhaps be good enough to accept something from I also?
Oh, what are you hawking, then?
Hawking, monsieur, I'm no cheap peddler. I offer you this very special something, which I keep safe here, beneath my impossibly tight-laced stays.
Ooh!
Oh, lummy.
Well, that's certainly a bigger one than I was imagining.
I pray you, take this grand argent crucifix and chain from me before the audience start making up any of their own jokes.
Well, really, I don't quite have much use for such things. Well, what does mademoiselle want for it?
Nothing in the world. Monsieur is more than welcome to it. He has rendered us a great service, and we hardly know how to repay him.
Oh, well, oh, crikey. I suppose it'd be rude to, when in Reims, what?
Please allow me, monsieur. I shall gracefully remove it from about my delicate swan-like throat with my great bilbous-like hands. Here.
Oh my, it is, heavy on the collarbone, isn't it?
Oui, that crucifix has been in my genealogy for years.
Yes, I can tell. It's still warm.
But I pray you, monsieur, no matter how heavy it weighs upon you, do not remove it, whatever you do.
Do not remove it. Right. Well, toodle pip then.
Dinner at Le Pantalon Rouge was not an unpleasant one, but Dennisford retired earlier to his bedroom, shut up alone with his latest acquisition, lunting merrily.
Come.
Hard at it, I see, old fruit. Miss you at Dindin's?
Ah, Bridie. Good Lord, you're wearing a suit.
Yes, thought I'd pop over to the old domiciliary velocipede and change for dinner. The old Mother Superior routine was getting a bit thin. Besides which, I did keep getting propositioned by the barmaid.
Well, if one insists on dressing up as a woman, one will naturally attract lesbians. That much stands to reason.
Yes, well, possibly. Well, speaking of women, of sorts, dear me, I wish that landlady of ours would learn to laugh in a more cheering manner. Makes one feel as if there's someone dead in the house. Right, well, thinking I might find my room and get an early night. We have to make off tomorrow. Unless, of course, you fancy a spot of ragging first.
No, kind of you to offer, old darling, but no. Not really in the mood tonight. You'll think it's silly, but...
Yes?
Well, all this time since since purchasing the... I can't shake off a growing feeling of discomfort. It's been creeping over me. A nervous reaction, perhaps, after the delight of our discovery, but whatever it was, it resulted in a conviction that there was...
What? There was what?
That there was someone behind me, and consequently I've been far more comfortable with my back to the wall. Please don't make a joke of that, Bridie. Well, all this, of course, weighs light in the balance against the obvious value of the collection we've acquired.
So, how is the doorstopper?
Oh, a veritable treasure trove in which every moment has revealed something more charming. Oh, bless Canon Filthy. I wonder where he is now.
Well, given you said he was bish in the 17th century, 6 feet under, I would imagine, or at least sincerely hope.
Oh, Bridie. Right, well, half a pipe more, then, yes, land of Nod, what? But this crucifix that the young woman insisted on giving me, it is rather a nuisance of a thing to have round one's neck, just too heavy. Give me a hand with it, will you?
You sure you want to be doing that? Didn't the little filly say that you were to keep it on at all times, on pain of... Well, actually, she didn't say on pain of what.
Oh, don't be silly, old love. I bet she gives one to all the tourists, and a crucifix, too. Family heirloom, my Sunday bonnet.
Yeah, well, it looks a bit too substantial for the gift shop, if you ask me.
All right. Last century, I suppose. Yes, probably. Most likely her father's been wearing it for years.
Right, well, nighty-night, old fruit.
Night-night, Bridie.
The moment the door had closed, Dennisford found his feeling of unease beginning to return, and it wasn't long before his gaze was drawn inexorably back towards the crucifix lying on the table beside him.
I suppose it might be of some value. I think I may give it a clean tomorrow before I put it away properly.
This thought had barely had time to run through Dennisford's mind before his attention was caught by an object lying on the red cloth just by his left elbow. 2 or 3 ideas of what it might be flitted through his brain with their own incalculable quickness.
What's that? A pen wiper? No such thing in the house. A rat? No, too big. A large spider? I trust to goodness not, no. Good God! A hand! Like the hand in that picture!
In another infinitesimal flash, he had taken it in. Ruddy, dusky skin, covering nothing but bones and tendons of appalling strength. Coarse, brown hairs, longer than ever grew on a human hand. Nails rising from the ends of the fingers splattered with paint. Yes, definitely oil paint. Dennisford flew out of his chair with a deadly, inconceivable terror clutching at his heart.
Oh, dear God!
The shape, whose left hand rested on the table, was rising to a standing posture behind his seat, its right hand crooked above Dennisford's scalp. There was tattered and tasteless, colourful drapery around it, like the kind of shirt worn generally by Americans on holiday. The coarse hair covered its owner as in the drawing. The lower jaw was bearded, like a beast's. Teeth,
showed behind the leering lips, the eyes, huge, glassy, and of a fiery yellow, against which the pupils showed black and intense, and the exulting hate and thirst to destroy life which shone there. These were the most horrifying features in the whole vision. There was an intelligence of a kind in them, a sly intelligence beyond that of a beast, below that of a children's entertainer. But that was not the worst of it. The creature began to whirl about the rooms like a dervish. In seconds, it had upended the bed and stripped the linen from it and pulled it over the frame to fashion what appeared to be, as in the painting of its confrontation with King Solomon, some form of screen. No, not a screen. A canvas. Yes, an artist's canvas. As if to confirm that fact, the creature began to apply its own paint-splattered talons to the sheet, creating, as it did, a form of primitivist figure.
Good Lord, is that meant to be a kangaroo?
But what was worse, far worse, Dennisford told me later, was the noise. The terrible noise the creature created as it worked. He would not dignify it with the term song or even music, but all the while the demon hummed and vocalized in the most appalling, almost enthusiastic manner, until finally Dennisford saw what had taken shape upon the canvas.
No! Oh, no, 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 no!
Can you guess what it is yet?
No! Please, God, no!
The feelings which this horror stirred in Dennisford were the intensest physical fear and most profound mental loathing. What did he do? What could he do? He has never quite been certain what words he said, but he knows that he spoke, that he grasped blindly at the silver crucifix, that he was conscious of a movement towards him on the part of the demon, and that he screamed with the voice of an animal in hideous pain.
Ah!
McBride and Madame Cliché burst in at Dennisford's screams, but they saw nothing, but felt between them something thrusting aside that passed out, just as Dennisford collapsed into a swoon. McBride sat up with Dennisford all that night. The next morning, Dennisford, although shaken and nervous, was almost himself, and his story found credence with the sacristan. Almost at dawn, Monsieur Terrifier had come to the inn on some pretense and had listened with the deepest interest to the story retailed. He showed no surprise.
It is he. It is he. I have seen him myself. He likes to paint, you know. It is the power he holds over the unwary. That and the animal hospital documentaries, but mainly it's the painting.
Canon Filthy's scrapbook now resides, almost complete, in the Hefner collection at Cambridge. There are a few pages missing, mainly the ones of Willie's, which are now happily in the possession of McBride. The final drawing, however, was photographed by Dennisford and then burnt on that morning before they left for Ork. You see, I believe Dennisford's realization was not that the much-discussed picture of King Solomon's confrontation with the demon was drawn by Canon Filthy from the life. That is quite evident. No, it was rather that the drawing's unnatural accuracy was down to the fact it was a self-portrait, and not, I fancy, from the pen of the late and decidedly three-legged King Solomon. It would appear Christmas Day has arrived.
Oh, Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas, Monty.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
Monty, yes.
Yes, and a Merry Christmas to you all, my dear boys. And so that, I fear, is the end of my storytelling.
Oh, Monty,
Oh,
no!
Monty.
No,
Until
no.
next Christmas Eve, that is, perhaps.
Hurrah!
Hurrah!
Right now, who's for dressing up as Queen Victoria?
Oh, me, Monty! Oh, yes, me too! Ladies' clothing all round! Whee!
And so, our story ends with Professor Montague Roads Jim once again happily engaged in wild acts of unconvincing transvestism with his young, pretty, drunken students. And if that doesn't sum up the true spirit of Christmas, well, I really don't know what Panto is all about. Good night!
Canon Filthy's Scrapbook was a shameless piece of paper-thin tosh, lovingly ripped off from M.R. James's far superior original and filled with tatty jokes by D.A. Gooding. The performance featured Damien Bell and Darren Gooding, music by Tina Gooding and Darren Tansley, sound effects and mixing by Stuart Armitage. The program was recorded at Colchester Arts Centre and is an I Hear Voices Theatre Company production.